lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan, and with me today, I have a very awesome guest. I have Matthew Sardo from Monkeys Fighting Robots. We're here to talk about his Kickstarter that is ending very soon. He's starting a really awesome, it's a really unique Kickstarter. It's for an indie comic book convention. Welcome, dude. I'm so happy to finally kind of meet you and talk some comics with you and get into it.
Yeah, this is super bizarre because the kayfabe ringside seat group, like I know everybody from the interwebs, and through putting the con together, I'm actually starting to like see faces and actually talk to people, and like this is really amazing, and I'm super excited, and I'm hoping you can come out. I'm hoping we can fit, I mean, maybe we might need to do a GoFundMe to get you out there or something like that.
That's it really is the cost, I wish I could afford it, you know what I mean? Like, because I want to be there. I mean, it's like a who's who of like people I've either interviewed for the channel or people I'm fans of. It's just like I want to go so bad. It's expensive, especially like I looked at the plane tickets. Fuck, man, that quick turnaround of like the flying in the same, if I were to go in and out in the same day. Really awesome idea that you had. I've been, just so you know, like I know you've probably answered this question, but I didn't watch any interviews you've done about this because I didn't want to like have it influence me in any way. So let's just really quickly a backstory on you. I mean, I know before we were recording, you talked about you owned a shop at one point. I know you've been doing Monkeys Fighting Robots for a while. Manny, who's one of my co-hosts on the channel, I know he writes for you as well. So yeah, how'd you get into comics?
Oh man, this is so my parents had a video store, and they gave me like a little space, and this is like 91, 92, and they gave me like a little space in the shop to like have my comic book store. So like back in the 90s, I had like, I would call it my flea market version of a comic book store. And that's when we had like, I forgot what they call it, but we had like not direct sales. It was like the newspapers version.
Mm-hmm.
So they would like send me the comics, and then I would like whatever we didn't sell, we would send back. It was, when they had the barcode on it and stuff. And so that was like the early 90s. Was doing that right before Image launched is when I was, I think there was a Galactic Storm for Avengers was going on, and I'm trying to think of what else was going. Oh yeah, I think like Carnage was introduced during when I was doing that. And then like I was out of comic books for a while, and then I moved to Chicago. I mean, I bounced all over the place. I grew up in New York. I was in Florida. I was in California during the rise and fall of the .coms, and I moved to Chicago in like 2002. And I went back to school, and Graham Cracker Comics was right in downtown Chicago. And I got back in, and it was right when like Identity Crisis was going on, Green Lantern Rebirth. So like all the characters that I like really enjoyed that were kind of pushed to the side in the 90s were coming back. And I was like, and then also like, this was like the boom in writing. Bendis was doing all the things that he was doing. Brubaker was starting to brew. It was a really good time to get back into comic books in the early 2000s. I was going to school for journalism, and I was like, okay, do I like get a job covering high school football in like Decatur, Illinois, making no money, or do I like open up a comic book shop and go follow my passion and kind of not make any money either? Like, like which direction did I want to go? Because I was bartending in Chicago and working in the restaurant industry, and I saved all my pennies and all my stuff, and I actually like sold like all my like collectibles to like fund the store. And I opened up the store in 2006, and we were about a mile north of Wrigley Field, and that was like awesome. And I also like it's interesting, like the evolution of like my comic book collecting and everything like that, because I was a superhero guy and big two, and then like owning a comic book store, you have to like there's a whole bunch of comics in the preview section besides the big two, and like that was like that was right where like indie comics were kind of like really starting to boom and go crazy and everything, and so it was a real education on comic books, and trade paperbacks were starting to like boom as well, and everything. And so that was a really amazing time, those like 5 years from like 2006 to 2011 of opening up the store. Then I got married, and we moved to Florida, and then I went into sports journalism, and went to the Super Bowl, and covered the All-Star game, and covered the Bucks and the Rays, and the the Lightning in Tampa. And then I was like, oh, the journalism bug was always pushing me back towards comic books, and I wanted to
Mhm.
like start my own thing because like that was the digital boom of like podcasting and all that other stuff was starting to happen, and radio. I was in like radio, and radio was kind of like dying, and I mean, I'm sure the owner of the business will still say that radio is not dead, but like, radio is completely different than what it was back in 2012. And so I started my own company, Monkeys Fighting Robots, and my radio tech that I had at the company, I was like, hey, just build me my own podcasting studio, and he like gave me a list, and he came to my house, and this is all the equipment I have for that, and we were covering like movies as well. The goal in like running a website was to get to like a million hits, to get to that profitable point of like doing things. And we got to a million hits and there was no money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I got to where you guys told me to go. And then there was like no money. And I was like, okay. And so then we kind of like refocused and I was like, all right, let's pull, let's stop covering movies and rumors and all this other stuff. And let's just focus on comic books and get to the stuff that we really like. And then we kind of scaled everything back and we, our writers were just focusing on comic books. And then I was like, okay, I want to do a show. Like this is what I think. We've been doing Monkeys Fighting Robots for a very long time, and we've created a following. And I was like, I want to do a show, and I put a deposit down on a venue in St. Pete, and then 2 weeks later, the world shut down because of the pandemic. And I was like, ah.
Yeah.
I was like, that was like the most depressing thing ever. And then Manny was like, hey, Matt, you got to check out this group. And I was like, what group? Facebook is the most annoying thing in the world. He's like,
Mhm.
no, man. There's this like kayfabe, bring side seek. And I was like, what's kayfabe? What is all this stuff? Blah, blah. And I go in and I was like, holy cow, this is just a bunch of people like making comic books and like talking about like, hey man, what kind of stapler are you using to self print, put your books together? And like in the early part of that group, like it was really like a hands-on, how do we make comic books in
Yeah.
our bag, and then like, hey, who wants a copy of my book? I made like 10 copies. Who wants it? And people were like mailing stuff out and everything like that. And I was like, holy shit, this group is the most amazing thing in the world. And that's when I was like, oh, if I can't do a show, maybe I can put a show in a magazine. And then we did Monkeys Fighting Robots, the magazine, and we like kickstarted that, and we've done 4 issues of that now and everything, which is awesome. But that was like the genesis was like that group, seeing everybody in that group, and then Jeffrey Krawczak, who like was from the group, he did the cover. He's done all the covers for all our magazines. I'm trying to think of who else was in there. Blanchard, I think that's the last name.
Yeah.
He's always done something there. Jeff Manley, like he's done something. Trying to think of who else we've had in there.
You also did
Eric.
that book with Jamie Jones too.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. Like, I was always trying to figure out like what to do with Monkeys Fighting Robots, because like, when the name came up, I was like, how do we like because basically I was in Chicago with my buddies who were marketing friends, and I was like, I want to do something in comic books. I want to do something about pop culture. And we were like had a bottle of whiskey and we were drinking and we were like throwing names out of websites. Like Red Laser, Blue Laser, stuff like that, like all these different kind of things. And then my buddy was like, Monkeys Fighting Robots. And I was like, oh my God. Like it just like boom. And so as soon as Monkeys Fighting Robots came up, I was like, I eventually have to do something with it, comic book wise.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, Jamie Jones was living across the street from my house in St. Pete, Florida. And we had connected at like a comic book store in like Tampa, and like we'd run in a few other times and chatted and everything. And I think it was like a few free comic book days before we like really connected. And then he was like, hey man, where do you live? And I was like, I live here. And you're like, I live here. And like there was a brewery like not too close real close to us. So I was like, hey, why don't we like do a comic strip? We were talking about doing like something with Instagram, like where we'd like do a weekly strip and kind of like have it go from there. We were trying to do like Instagram style comic strips, like 3 panels or 4 panels, and try to tell a story. And they were at the time we were doing like 1 page a week for probably the first year. I think we were doing 1 page a week and releasing that. And then we like started publishing the book. And then again, the pandemic hit, and shut everything down because I had this whole big plan of like going to comic book stores and conventions and promoting it, and then that all shut down everything else too. I remember doing going to a comic book store for, I think it was the second issue, and it was like they had just announced the shutdown. I think like 3 people walked into the store through like the 6 hours that we were there, and we knew the owner and we were friends with them, and like we ate lunch and everything was fine, but we were still like, "Oh man, I don't know what's gonna happen here." Yeah, so I've published like 4 magazines, 2 issues, 1 trade paperback. Yeah, and then we had the original comic book that I self-funded. So we're around like 8 books we've published right now, or I published. And then, oh yeah, so I got to finish the story. We still haven't gotten caught up to now. So then I moved to Connecticut in the past year, and I was like, I got to get back into this show idea. I got to get this show off the ground. I think it's something important to me. I didn't want to get back into retail. But I didn't want to, opening up another store would just be chaos at this point in time. The industry's where the industry is, and God bless everybody who owns a comic book store and runs a comic book store. You guys are amazing people. But what I was always good at was events and promotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, let's do that. That's what I'm good at. And that's the stuff that I had the most fun at when I had the comic book store, was like hosting events. We would do WinterCon, and I would have like 20 creators come over in 2 days, and we'd have good sales, big sales, and we'd have like cool trivia and other things, and sketch offs and other thing, and crazy things like that. And it was like the best aspects of owning a comic book store. And so I searched for a venue for the past like 6 months, and then I found this college in New Haven, the University of Southern Connecticut, or
Mm-hmm.
Southern Connecticut University. It's not the easiest name to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, next March we're gonna do Indie Comics Creator Con. It's gonna be about 100 creators, and it's got a good ballroom size, and then we have a 200-seat theater on the first floor for panels, and there'll be panels running all day, and Rocco Jerome is gonna handle panels. And so now the steps of the show is I wanted to open up Artist Alley and get that going, and we have about 60 creators already signed up for Artist Alley. And then I wanted to do the Kickstarter to jumpstart ticket sales and the announcement and everything like that, and get things going and kind of create like funds to bring in a guest of honor. After that, it's just a full run of pushing ticket sales to support these creators, and then filling out like the final guests, the final 20 guests to the show and everything like that. So right now we have 6 days left in our Kickstarter. We're trying to raise like $5,000 so that we can like, like I said, keep the show at a minimal cost for creators, and also like use these funds to fly in a guest of honor, or travel expenses, all the different things like that we could do. Whether it's food for creators, or other events, pre and post events and stuff like that. But just kind of like, this is the seed money to get this show off the ground.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's funny because your story of finding the group is kind of similar. Eli was editing the first issue of Wizard that he did, and I met him at my comic shop. Like, he was a customer. It was like right around when I started, and I used to do the pulls, and I saw that on his board it said Eastman TMNT covers, and I was like, oh, he's a true Turtle fan, because like I'm a Turtle fan too. So like when he came in, like we just got to talking, and I think I was only doing Comic Lounge as a website at the time. I wasn't doing a YouTube channel. We built up a kind of little friendship there, and then so when he was doing Wizard, he asked if I would help him edit. I was like, of course, dude. So like, and I didn't know what Cartoonist kayfabe was. I had never heard of it, and he was like telling me about it and stuff. I'm like, what the fuck is that, dude? And like, so I helped him edit, I think like half of the magazine or something. Like we went over together, and he added me to the group, but I didn't really like kind of like explore the group that much. Like I'd get like notifications or whatever. I'm like, okay. And then the pandemic happened. And then so I had a lot of time, and then I started watching the channel, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty dope. Then it was like before they did the whole image grand design stuff. So like I was like peripherally like kind of like looking in the group, like like you talked about, they're sharing their own books, but also recommending cool stuff too.
Right.
Like stuff that I didn't know about. It was just crazy to see. Like, I mean, some of those people, like I talk to more than I've talked to people in my real life, because I don't have a ton of friends like that growing up that read comic books. So like but yeah, the relationships that I've made from that group, it's like, it's amazing. You know, I think to me, that's what I've gained the most from there. Like, yeah, I've gotten some cool comics, gotten some cool recs, but it's the people that I've met, you know, and like got a chance to talk to and build friendships with. I think that it's so awesome. And like, you basically, you're not calling it that, but you basically have almost all the people from that group now a part of this convention. And it's cool to see that, like, that was what you wanted to do, was spotlight these up and coming people, these people that don't necessarily get the shine. I mean, I know that there was wasn't it on The Beat that didn't Heidi McDonald mention?
Yeah, we were there was
Featured on
a
there?
Kickstarter update in the
Yeah.
Beat. I think we're in Adventures in Poor Taste. Like there
Yeah.
was definitely some like media coverage on it and everything. I think the with this Kickstarter, it's been interesting because like some people are like, "Oh, I can't come to the show," and so they don't like. There, I was like, "But we've created like tons of tiers for people, reward tiers for people that can't come to the show. Like I didn't want to do a program, you know, because I feel like programs are just kind of. I have programs, and you know, from San Diego Comic Con, and I flipped through them, and I was like, "Oh man, I really wish there was something more to this."
Yeah.
And so we're doing like a yearbook where like each person that's at the show is going to have like a 2-page spread with like their bio and you know their artwork, and then I'm going to put like a QR code on the page so you can just like flash it with your phone and then go to their website or Instagram, wherever they want you to go, so you can kind of like, oh man, this artist is awesome or this creator is awesome, what do I do next? I click on this and then I go there. So I wanted to kind of create something that was more than just a program. And and other people are gonna like, there's a few people tossing like 20-page stories and stuff like that. Like it's gonna be like 150 plus pages, and some of the guys from Monkeys Training Robots and girls from Monkeys Training Robots are gonna toss in some articles as well. And I'm also gonna do some like interviews with creators. And so we got the yearbook on there as
And that's
well.
physical copy, right?
But yeah, it's a physical copy that
Very
you'll be
cool.
able to
Okay.
get. And then also I talked to all the different creators and I was like, "Hey, let's put together like an indie comics digital bundle where like everybody tosses in their comic books that they want readers to read. So everybody who buys a ticket will get a link to this Dropbox folder with, I think we're up to like 37 books now
Yeah,
in
it's
there.
pretty crazy. It's a
It's pretty
lot.
crazy. Again, I don't know how this all works, but there's a few like bootleg books in there. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like it's, you know, there's the Image Grand Design is in there as well. Chris Anderson just sent me a link to his Masters of the Universe bootleg comic book.
They're
So,
so awesome. Yeah.
um, so yeah, there's gonna be a lot of cool stuff in that, and so I'm hoping that the reach on the show is much greater than just a regular show. Like where you get a ticket to the show, but then you also get this like giant bundle of comic books as well, where you can flip through and be like, "Oh, wait, I can't wait to meet these different people
Hmm.
at the show," or you know, talk to them online afterwards and everything like that. So I'm doing my best as like a marketing and promotion person to market and promote the creators of Artist Alley, which I don't think you get at regular shows.
Well, no, I mean, I think isn't the majority. So, like, okay, so I guess let's get into what the con, it's about, right? Like, it is going to be mostly Artist Alley, but I know that there's talk of panels as well. I mean, you mentioned it, Rocco. I mean,
Yes.
I think he
So
asked me if I wanted to do one with it too. I was like, if I can go, I'll do it. I think that's. I just want to say how great of an idea I think that is, to not just do a cool yearbook, because I totally agree. Like, I saved my San Diego Comic Con one. I've saved them before, but like after a couple years, I'm like, why the fuck did I save this? Like, I don't need this. Like, there's nothing additive to me other than the memory. And I have pictures for that. The bundle of the digital comics, I think I have almost every single one that's in there. It is an interesting way for people that don't know those people.
right.
Now it's like, now you will be excited to meet them, because before it's like, if you don't know who they are, what's the, like, the excitement when you meet somebody? That's what's great about cons. You're like, oh man, I can't wait to see this person, this person, this person, because I've been a fan for a long time. You are going to create new fans from that digital bundle, which is a brilliant idea, I think.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be cool. And I mean, like, I know that you can't build, you know, SPX overnight, like, you know, or you can't build San Diego Comic Con overnight. So this is just like the beginning. It's
Hmm.
going to be a small show. It's going to be an intimate venue. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm gonna try to pack the house the best I can, and like, I've already reached out to like all the different art communities of New Haven. The reason why I picked New Haven is because you're a short train ride away from New York City. Like you could hop on a train if you live in the city and come up for the day and hop on the train and go home. Like it's not, people commute that way back and forth from New Haven, and that's where like the big train station is for Connecticut. And then you're also, only 2 hours away from Boston. If, I'm not a big Boston fan. So,
Me either. I'm a Laker fan, so I'm not about Boston.
Are you sad about winning time?
I'm very sad about it one time. I think
When,
that I think that the people that had problems with like the people depicted, obviously Jerry West, the way they depicted him in the first season, I can understand him being mad. Kareem as well. I do think that this current season was great. I think the writing's great. And like if you put yourself out of it that it's not a fact, like everything is fact, then it's a great show. Like it was very entertaining. So hopefully Showtime picks it up and they can just change the name to Showtime, like which is what it should have been called all along instead of Winning Time. Yeah, I was pretty upset.
yeah, and honestly, like if you haven't seen the show, the way they filmed the late 70s, early 80s cinematically was like glorious to me. Like
That's
that's the
awesome.
stuff where I'm like, oh my god, you're doing comic book elements in film, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, and I like freak out every time like they do that, and it just looks so good, and it was really intense. It was really intense, and I hope that somebody picks it up because like it was just it was bonkers good. It's bonkers good.
Yeah, and you can't end a fucking show about the Lakers Boston beating them. Like, I don't care about your stupid montage at the end. Like that doesn't help me as a Laker fan. I'm like, you literally just had them get their asses kicked by Boston and then bye,
Yeah.
It just makes me hate HBO. Is what it does. It just makes me hate them. I think they're shitty. They should have at least give us like a half season, just to cap it off with a win or something. But whatever.
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there. But yeah,
Definitely.
so I do think that I think that this could be the something of every con starts as something, it has to start
Right.
somewhere. So
Yeah.
like I think what this could be, and like, maybe down the line, like maybe it's not in the same location every year. Maybe it's a con that, goes from, state to state where it's not kind of like, well, I'm comparing it to like maybe like something like Comics Pro, because Comics
Right.
Pro, they'll have the same venue for 2 years and then they move, right? That's for people that don't know what Comics Pro is, that's basically a convention for retailers where all the publishers go and they give their spiel for, what's going to come out for the year. I think some talent goes as well. That's kind of what I envisioned, like when I heard about your con. I'm like, it'd be cool if like, every couple of years it's somewhere new. So it's like maybe if you couldn't get out there, it's too far for you, couldn't afford the ticket, like, well, maybe this year you can go, or whatever, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, right now, my initial goal for this is, we get the first show done, and then the next year we like make it a 2-day show at the same venue,
Cool.
and go from there. Because, as a person who has produced comic books and also like isn't making a living producing comic books, all the conventions turned into like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday shows. Like this, just the weekend show doesn't really exist anymore. And I'm like, man, I really wish there were some shows that I could table at and I don't have to take off work or find babysitters or, whatever. It's expensive. It's expensive to table at a show to begin with, and then to
Yeah.
take off work makes it even more expensive. And then you're like, afterwards, you're like, oh man, I'm really depressed. I didn't make any money. I lost money. And like my wife or girlfriend is mad at me because I took out time, like all these things. And I'm like, how am I going to create another book now? Like there's so many things stacked against creators being successful in this industry. And that was one of the things I saw was like, there's no more weekend shows, you know?
I know. I hate that. I mean, look, I love going to convention, but I don't need 4 days of it either.
Yeah.
I'm cool with two. I'm cool with 2 days, especially because like you think, like you said, people taking off work, like that immediately is cutting into your profit, because now most creators have day jobs. So like now you're asking them to take off probably the day before the con starts, which is the Wednesday, right? And then they're going to be exhausted for Monday. I don't know. Most people probably would want to take that Monday off too, because that's traveling back. It's like, yeah, it's a lot. So I think it's a great idea to just stick as a weekend con?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of the ideas on the creation of this show have been from looking at it from Artist Alley's perspective and being like, okay, what do they need? What do they want? How do you make it successful for them? You know, and I mean, the biggest thing is keeping the cost down on the table. Like that's the first thing, and that's the whole point of the Kickstarter is the like, okay, let's get the seed money going so that we don't have to charge $300 for a table. Like who's, I mean, if you're starting out, printing your first comic book at home or doing your own thing or going through Comic Wellspring to print 25 issues off or whatever your budget allows, like, how are you gonna make money at a $300 booth or even like a $150 booth? I
Mhm.
mean, especially if you're like a writer. I feel bad for, I mean, I'm a writer, so I can't. I've told Jamie Jones this a million times. Like, man, I got to figure out how to draw one thing really well. Like I got so I can be like, hey, robot head sketches, $10, and then I just sit there and and like, here you go, and like that's my one thing I can make
Mhm.
for people. But I'm not talented. I'm not talented like that. I have talents on the other end. So
So, is there any surprises that we haven't heard, or any other things that you can talk about that you maybe haven't mentioned yet in terms of what we can expect with the con? I know you probably aren't going to say. Do you have an inkling of who your special guest may be? You don't have to tell me who it is, but do you have an idea of who you want to reach out to at least?
well, I can tell you that Daniel Warren Johnson politely said no at guest of honor. I can tell you that. I, you know, I,
I can see that. Yeah.
I put that out there, and I was trying to think of who would be a name that kind of inspires people because this show it has had if we're going with the kayfabe route, like that has like a really good. He's a really good guest of honor.
Sure. Yeah.
Because he was doing indie books and then he like kind of like rose up the ranks and now like Kirkman's like here's Transformers. Like I mean like it doesn't you don't grow any higher in the indie world than
Mhm.
Kirkman handing you something. But that was one of the person that we reached out to. There's a few other people that I've worked with in the past that I would love to have come out and I'm trying to figure out. I know for the show that got canceled, in St. Pete, Jeff Lemire was supposed to come down for that, and I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Hey, Jeff, I gotta cancel the show." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not coming to the United States anytime soon." Like, he was like, nope, I'm good. I see what's going on over you guys. I'm gonna stay on this side of the border and go from there." So, I'm hoping to have an announcement soon on the guest of honor, and if not, like, I'll go lock it down at New York Comic Con with like in-person conversations and stuff.
Mhm.
But again, like it's all about this Kickstarter right now because this is the funds to kind of like get people. The more money we make at this Kickstarter, the more money I have to fly people out. I mean, and I know it's the which comes first, the chicken or the egg, and I know that some people are like, man, you got to announce a guest of honor to like boost the sales, and I was like, well, there needs to be interest in the show so that I can like, there needs to be a grassroots interest in the show for me to fork out money to fly somebody out. And then that's kind of what that's what the Kickstarter was. It's like, let's see what kind of interest we got, because I know that everybody in the group was like, hey, we should do this. And all the people jumped in on Artist Alley right away. Like that, like I have a wait list for Artist Alley right now,
Oh
which is
wow.
awesome because like, hopefully, the people on the wait list will come back next year or we'll see that it's a fun show and we can having a wait list for Artist Alley is amazing because then I know that like maybe we can use a bigger venue.
Mhm.
If we have, right now it's somewhere between 80 and 100 guests that I can fit, or somewhere between 80 and 100 tables I can fit in the venue. So guest wise, it can be somewhere between 80 and 100 as well. But if there's 200 people requesting Artist Alley tables, then I can like be like, oh shit, we can get a huge bigger venue next year. So to just have that interest to begin with in Artist Alley is amazing. More because of this Kickstarter, more and more creators and vendors are reaching out to me and stuff. So the back end, I guess the back end of the show is very successful right now. Now the front end of the show, getting people to come to the show and get interested in the show and get it on. Basically, I'm getting the show on people's radar. I mean, like, how do you hear about a con for the first time? So after this Kickstarter ends, we'll start my like Wednesday comic book store tour through Connecticut and New York and I want to call it the. And I really don't want to call it the New England area because I hate that word so much. Because I'm not a Patriots fan at all. But yeah, I will definitely be. The cool thing about Connecticut is it's 2 hours wide by an hour deep, so I can go anywhere, very quickly, and I will be hitting up all the comic book stores, and I'm going to be really friendly to retailers. I'm probably going to, any retailer that wants to come to the show can come, and I'll probably be doing like ticket giveaways as well at all the different shops as well. So like I have a really cool like grassroots marketing plan to get people into the door,
Mhm.
and I'm excited to do that because one of the best aspects of owning the comic book store was nobody ever came into the store mad or upset,
That's
or
what
if
I
they
always say. That's what I've always said about working at a comic store. Like, it can never be a shitty job because you never really have shitty customers. You
yeah,
don't go in there angry. You're like, oh, if I can get a comic, like,
or if you're pissed off, you leave happy. Like you
yeah.
come in, you're like, I'm having a shitty day. Oh look, I'm at the comic store. Yay, everything's fine. And then they leave. Like I really miss that like interaction with the customers. And I'm looking forward to doing that, on this like mini tour of promotions of the show. And
Mhm.
I'm really excited to just talk shop and have somebody like talk my ear off so much that I'd be like, hey man, I gotta go. Like I really want that. I miss that so much. Where like when I was in the comic book store and I get trapped by a customer, I'd be like, where do I go? Because this person is only an hour or two of a 4 hour conversation about whatever Vampirella. I mean like something crazy.
Yeah.
But I miss all those interactions, and I'm so excited to have those interactions at the show too. Like I'm trying to lock down a really cool, not a really cool. I'm trying to lock down a hotel so that we can all be in the same area
Mhm.
because I think the hotel bar scene will be so much fun, for all the different creators and the people that want to come to the show and just the talking of shop and like I mean Eli and I and Rocco and I talked about it. Like there's gonna be a lot of hugs. I think it's gonna be emotional. I think the show is gonna be emotional because like the origin of this group and like the pandemic and all that other fun stuff that's kind of come out of it and like the successful stories and everything like that.
It's a very unique show in the aspect of like all the people, almost all the people have relationships with one another, and that's not the case at other conventions. And it's all about comics. That's also not the case with most conventions anymore either. It's mostly pop culture. Like I went to my first San Diego ever this past summer, and luckily the studios weren't there. I mean, I hate to say it. I feel bad for everybody that's been affected by the strike, but for me as a fan, like it was mostly about comics. But even then, like walking around, I'm like, it's still kind of not, like it's completely overtaken by pop culture. Every con I go to, for the most part, is that way. At least for me on the West Coast. Like I know Baltimore Heroes Con, like those are the cons like I should be going to, but again, it's like all the way on the other end of the country.
Right.
So it's like a huge expense just to get there. And then the expense of like, well, now I'm going to want to buy stuff and the tickets are going to cost me money too. So that's why I'm so excited about the indie comics fair. I really, really hope that I make it out there because I think it's going to be such a unique experience for so many people. And especially it being the first one, I think I don't want to not be a part of it, and I think that I'm sure there's a lot of other people too. Like that's why you have a wait list for artists, because nobody wants to miss out on something that could be the start of something really great. And that's kind of what I see for it. I think I'm glad somebody did it. I'm glad you did it.
I appreciate that. And like it's funny because it was one of these things that I've been talking about doing for a while. And then when the pandemic hit, like I was talking to Eli about doing it. We were kind of talking and Rocco was always involved as well. We were kind of talking and then I was like, man, I'm moving. Things are kind of like in flux right now. So I got to step away. And then like, you know, things started going off my plate and clearing up my schedule. And I was like, I got to get this show off the ground. I was like, I just have to. And then like, I was like, all right, we're doing it. And I was like, I just started looking at venues and researching and luckily the state of Connecticut, they have an events bureau to where like I emailed a person and they were like, hey, you want to tour all these venues and like we'll help you find a venue and stuff like that. And I was like, are you shitting me? Like
That's
I
awesome.
was like, this is long, because everywhere else that I was, when I was in Florida and then like doing other things, like nobody really wants to hear about a small convention. Everybody wants like big money and big corporate things and all these different things. So it was very welcoming to be like, hey man, we want to do this like small little art show kind of thing. And they're like, oh man, that'd be amazing. Like let's find a venue. Let's work this out, make it happen. And then if you grow, we'll find you a bigger venue and stuff like that. So a shout out to Connecticut government, I guess. I don't
That's awesome.
know.
No, I mean, yeah, you don't hear that kind of stuff where they're like so helpful and stuff and trying to help you get the perfect spot. That's dope.
So yeah, and side note, I don't know this yet, but I do love pizza, and apparently New Haven has the best pizza. Like it's known for its like New York pizza kind of thing. So to keep it back to like turtles related, like there'll be a lot of pizza had at this show.
I mean, I've never heard that. I mean, it's kind of weird to hear New Haven has the best pizza, but now I kind of want to try it too. So yeah, I think that again, I think it's such a huge undertaking to do a convention. Like I have thought about it, like, oh, it'd be cool, like because LA, like I feel like there should be something similar, like out here, something cool like that about for indie guys, because I feel like there's a lot of indie creators that are local to LA. And I'm glad somebody did it. I think it's like I said, I think it's something that if you like comic books, you won't want to miss. And I hope that more people. I know it's kind of ending soon, the Kickstarter, but get out there and back it. The yearbook, brilliant idea for people like people that can't necessarily make it, but just want to feel like they're supporting it. The digital bundle that you get, another great idea. I hope that this is super successful for you guys, for not just for you for starting it, but for all the artists that are going out there, getting their name out there. I hope that maybe get some more press, some more coverage at the con. I think that'd be really dope. I really feel like in my gut that it's gonna do something big.
Yeah, no, speaking of the like media and like coverage, I'm trying to figure out the best way to videotape the panels so that like the people that back the con that can't go to the con will be able to get them first. Or I don't think I'm going to be able to pull live streaming off because I'm going to be relying on somebody else's internet and stuff like that. But I definitely want to figure out how to package it in a way that everybody who can't go to the show gets to see them first.
Mhm.
And then, I'll put them on the YouTube channel and go from there. Because I do think the panel aspect of the show could be really helpful to like up and coming creators. I think there will be, Rocco and I have talked about it, like just people's experience, like making comic books and going through it. It's like, I still feel like every book that I've made hasn't been the right paper decision yet, you know, where I'm like, man, I feel like I'm almost there, but I feel like, and it finally dawned on me, the thicker your book is, the thinner the paper needs to be. And like that, so that's the one little piece of knowledge that I've kind of gleaned off of making comic books because the last Monkeys Fighting Robots was like I don't know, like 60 or 70 pages, and I just kept it the same weight, and I was like, oh shit, I probably should have used a thinner paper, and it would have like folded properly and just
Mhm.
held differently and stuff like that. So I think like those conversations or those panels where people are just talking about like little small things that made a difference in their comic book career will help all the different creators around. Like I think everybody's going to be smarter after this show and dumber. I mean, definitely be dumber too, because like I do think there'll be a few at late night parties on Saturday night. So, but I do think this show you will leave the show smarter as a creator.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of knowledge to be passed around, a lot of talent that's going to be there. I know the Kickstarter's ending in a few days, but where can people continue to stay up to date on the con past the Kickstarter? Where can they find you online? And I'll drop all those links down below.
So the biggest thing is indiecomicscreatorcon.com. It links to our Substack, and I've established just talking to different people that the Substack is the best. The Substack email newsletter kind of format is the best way to keep people informed for the con, and it'll have links to ticketing and links to if you're press and you want to request a press pass or whatever. It'll have all those links there, and it'll also like give me a chance to again like do artist alley spotlights where I'll spotlight all the creators on the Substack as well. So indiecomicscreatorcon.com is the best place to go for that. But with social media being as crazy it is, I'm keeping it very simple to, Instagram, Facebook, and then, Threads, because that's part of the trio of social media right there. So Substack and then Instagram and Facebook are probably the best ways to keep track of the con. And yeah, that's my social media pitch.
All right, cool, dude. Well, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me. I'm very excited for this. Can't wait to, even if I don't go, I'm going to be cheering you guys on from home, because I think it's just really great what you're doing. Get out there, back to Kickstarter, a few days left. You don't want to miss out on this. And Matt, dude, thank you so much again. Would love to chat comics with you again sometime. Even if it's not about a Kickstarter, I would love to talk comics with you, dude, anytime.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything.